So Notre Dame and Ohio State are going to play a college football game on Monday for the national championship. It will give us the first winner in the 12-team playoff era. And already, if you are a non-Power 2 fan, I would say the ultimate goal this postseason, the ultimate goal with the playoff has been achieved because the SEC is in shambles right now. Relatively speaking, SEC, I understand. I'm not saying that your conference is done, but relative to what SEC fans feel their place in the world is, they're in shambles. The fans have been melting down, whining, complaining, lashing out because for a second straight year, they're not in the national championship. The last time a Big 12 team played for the national championship was the last time an SEC team played for the national championship. You might have back-to-back years here with a Big 10 champ. But if you are a non-Power 2 fan, is that the best case scenario? Or will you actually gain more as a fan of any team that's outside of the Power 2? Will you actually gain more if Notre Dame pulls this upset and beats Ohio State? Like, should you have a vested rooting interest in the Fighting Irish? That's the question that I'm going to raise going into Monday. So, again, best thing that could have happened for the have-nots of the college football world. Well, one would have been SMU upsets Penn State in Happy Valley. Arizona State doesn't go engage 8 on 4th and 13, sits back in coverage and bats down a Quinn Ewers pass on 4th and 13 and wins the game. Like, yes, those things would have been better. Boise plays I guess they would have been playing a great game with SMU in my hypothetical scenario. There are lots of things that could have happened to make it be a more ideal playoff. But from a big picture standpoint, it's tough to beat knocking the SEC down a peg, like neutering the SEC superiority thing. That's been great. But would this be bigger and better if neither Power 2 conference wins the title? I find myself, to be honest, and some of this is a bit, I don't know if like selfish is the right word, unique to me because I'm a K-State guy, as most of you know. So, like, I've got a soft spot for Will Howard. I got frustrated with him in the 2023 season when he was very turnover prone. And I do think, like, hey, 22, K-State had a better roster around him. And he won a Big 12 championship, and he was fabulous. He's the type of guy. He needs that roster around him, and he does. I mean, there's not a better roster in the country than what's around him at Ohio State. So it's worked out really, really well here in the playoff. I'm happy for him. I'm rooting for him. What he did in 2022 and the fact that he stuck around after a really rough start to his K-State career when he took a lot of crap from fans when he was just thrown into the fire too early. I have nothing but appreciation for the guy. I would love to see him win a national championship. I also find myself gravitating toward Ohio State because, I mean, frankly, I think it would make the SEC even angrier if it was the Big Ten that won the title for a second straight year, because their only true peer in the sport is the Big Ten. And so now if you're starting to fall behind there and you're losing to these northern teams when there's such civic pride in the South about the football teams and the college football that is played down there, and this idea that like nobody else can actually do it, even though, the Big Ten was ahead of them. Like when I was growing up in the 90s, it has not been this way forever that the SEC has completely dominated like this. It is a creation that started largely about the time Nick Saban showed up in Tuscaloosa so that everybody else could ride the coattails there. So the fact that Ohio State winning would really, I think, drive the needle even further. What am I talking? Drive the knife even further into the SEC. Twist it. That's appealing to me. I do like that. Also, like just Ohio State, they're a more fun team to watch. Nothing against Notre Dame. I appreciate their team. I really like Marcus Freeman. I appreciate what they're doing. Ohio State's a more fun team to watch. I mean, has there been anybody more fun to watch in the playoff the way that they have played? That's just a really, really fun team. But if Notre Dame wins this, there is, as crazy as this sounds, there is at least a smidge of kinship between the Big 12 and ACC and Notre Dame. Because as much as Notre Dame represents this historic brand in college football that's always been one of the best in the elite of the elite, kind of an elitist vibe there, And again, I will reference my years growing up in the 90s as a K-State fan with a program that was winning 11 games 6 out of 7 years and not getting, I thought, enough national respect. You look at Notre Dame like, God, these guys, how are they every year? People care more about them. Notre Dame won't play us. Like, what? I would get so frustrated with it. But what's happened over the last 10 years or so is that Notre Dame has kind of been relegated to definitely a level below the elite. And so they've been looking up at that group of, we talked blue bloods earlier, but when I said I use blue blood as a term for just the elite upper crust of college football, they've been looking up at that group too. Like, they certainly have been a peg or two below Alabama, Georgia, Clemson when they were still there with Deshaun Watson winning national championships, Ohio State. Like, they haven't been on that level. They were another one of those schools that was just kind of mocked and left for dead a little bit. Even when Brian Kelly was having really good seasons, he was like, yeah, that's great. That's cute. Notre Dame's peak is really good. They're not getting beyond that. So I know it's crazy to say that you share a little bit in common with Notre Dame, but you do. You do. In this new era, this last 5 to 10 years, you do. Because no one thought Notre Dame could do this here. So if Notre Dame now does, there are a couple things that happen there. One, you can look at it and say, hey, I understand all the history. I understand all the advantages you have, the resources, and Oklahoma State, Utah, like, as respected as they have become in college football, not anywhere near on the level of like a Notre Dame. But you can look at that at least and be like, well, that's somebody from outside that big group. That's somebody from outside those Power 2 conferences. I can get more on board with that. And that's got to drive those Power 2 conferences nuts as they try to negotiate for all of this ridiculous stuff and 4 teams automatically into the next version of the playoff and an automatic bye for the league champion. As they're trying to do all this, if they're trying to do all that, well, Notre Dame's busy winning the title and the SEC isn't even in the championship game. There's something nice about that. That is back to the concept of neutering them a bit. That's taking away some of their legitimate ammo. I like that. Could that temper some of the enthusiasm that the SEC or Big Ten has to try and jam through 4 automatic bids for their conference? I said earlier, like when that first came out, that they wanted to do that, there was a lot of public pressure and public backlash on that, and they backed off for a little bit. So would this create more of that? If the story comes back and like, hey, they're still trying to do this, and everyone's looking around like, what are you guys talking about? I mean, like, you guys didn't even win the national championship this year. The SEC hasn't done it in a couple of years. The NIL transfer portal has leveled the playing field more. We're now having to let more teams into this championship club, right? Michigan and Notre Dame are 2 teams that I certainly, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, hell no, I don't have Michigan or Notre Dame in the group of teams that I think can legitimately win a national championship in this day and age of college sports. Not at all. Washington was there and played for a national title. The year before that, TCU played for a national title. Like, those teams have been right there. It's opening up. It's more wide open. Why should we really take you seriously when you say that you need 4 automatic bids? Will that take some wind out of their sails and create more public pushback? Perhaps. I, again, would not say that that's likely, but I think that's something that I would love to see how it plays out. I would love to see that be something that they have to battle against. Very, very similar to the situation that I laid out with the Arizona State game, right? If you have that in your back pocket to say, hey, here's some evidence that like that automatic bye thing was not as ridiculous as you thought. It's not as ridiculous as you thought because you damn near got beat in double overtime by little old Arizona State, who was picked last in the Big 12, who you freaked out about getting an auto bye. The more you can have tangible evidence that works against the hypothetical machine that exists in the SEC and to a lesser extent Big 10, the better. The better. Like, they're going to bully you. I mean, don't get it twisted. Like, they're going to bully you, but at least limit the ability that they have to do that. Take away some of the oomph that they have in their ability to do that, man. Maybe instead of a big right hook, it's just more of a jab. You can reduce them to more of a jab. So for that reason, I think as much as I gravitate toward Ohio State, I think the better thing for non-Power 2 fans would be to watch Notre Dame win the national championship. And hey, maybe that means that Marcus Freeman then rides off into the sunset as the head coach of the Chicago Bears, right? They haven't hired a coach yet, right? Maybe that means Marcus Freeman gets an NFL job and then Notre Dame is, having to play coach roulette, take a chance on somebody who might not be as good next. We'll see. Either way, and I know Greg Flugar has talked about this on Peek Around the Corner. You guys should definitely check out his channel. But Notre Dame has already gotten a big win out of this and everything that's happened this year and with the playoff moving forward, because the auto buys for conference champions going away for them, man, that is great news for them. That means they only had to lose out 1, maybe 2 years. I guess the original topic today looks like it'll probably be 2 years where they wouldn't be able to get an automatic buy in this thing. But the first year that they're not able to get an auto buy, I mean, they're already in the freaking championship game. So who cares? Doesn't matter. They're already there anyway. So Notre Dame is definitely laughing about this. You guys think we need to be in a conference? You guys think it's going to be a threat to us that you're not going to give an automatic buy to anybody that's not a conference champ? That's a problem. That's going to change. And we'll make the national championship anyway. And then in the situation I'm outlining, maybe we'll win the national championship anyway, right? Yeah, funny, but Notre Dame's already getting some laughs out of this thing.